I'm just so proud to be here in front of a group of my peers, fellow entrepreneurs, it's aspiring entrepreneurs. So when you guys were young, do you remember, reading Richie Rich comic books? I loved Richie Rich. The rich kid, he had this adventurous life and it was exciting and fun. Well, raise your hand, or don't raise your hand, just nod if you want to be like Richie Rich. Well, I wanted to be like Richie Rich, too. So I told my parents, I think I was like 6 or 7 at the time, I said, Mom, Dad, I want to be Richie Rich. And they looked at me and they're like, well, you can't be Richie Rich. And I said, why not? And they said, because Richie Rich has rich parents and you have us. Well, that was the start of the path that I took that led me here about 4 decades later. I've had an unbelievable, adventurous, and exciting career as an entrepreneur. Clearly, today I'm not Richie Rich, but I have the possibility of becoming Richie Rich in my future. I started, after college, I worked in sales, and I had an unbelievable sales career. I mean, it was hard. I took a territory that pretty much had nothing, and I grew it into a $14 million territory after about 14 years. Now, all the time, I really loved sales, but I also developed this love for cooking, and I had a passion, for creating, and I did that, and I just loved to cook for my kids, my friends, my kids' friends, anyone who would eat my food. It's like my house, come and eat, and I'm going to cook for you. So after about 10 years ago, I was bored. It was like I was making a lot of money, over more than most of the men and women in my neighborhood, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, more money than I could actually spend. And I said, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with this career. I've learned everything I can in this career right here. So I'm going to open up a restaurant. I'm going to open up my own restaurant. And at the time I was married, and everyone, including my husband, thought I was absolutely crazy. How could I give up my security? I have kids. I mean, there's so many reasons why I shouldn't open up this restaurant. And there was one reason to open up the restaurant, and it was to follow my passion, my gifts. And so I did. And I worked in the restaurant business for 6 years. First, I had a small one in Lincolnshire called Lincolnshire Gourmet. And then I opened up a bigger one in Highland Park called Lincolnshire Gourmet. And everyone in Highland Park was like, well, why did you call it Lincolnshire Gourmet? It should be called Highland Park Gourmet. And I'm from New York, and I didn't realize that if you're west of Highland Park, not a good thing. Anyway, so I did this, and I was working, and every day I would meet people that inspired me, my customers, smart, talented people, and I just really loved what I did. It was incredibly hard, okay, but it was fun, and I was inspired. And one day, it was January 2009, one of my customers and mentors, a multi-million-dollar self-made entrepreneur, inspiration in the form of Keith, okay, my customer. He was also vegan and gluten-free. And he comes in the door and he throws these bag of Japanese noodles on my counter in the kitchen, and he says, and they're floating in water and they look funny. And he goes, here, Terri, cook with these. They'll put you on the map. Just like that. And I looked at him, I'm like, Keith, could you please give me a break? I have a tofu vegetable soup on the menu for you. And he goes, just cook with them. I said, okay. So at first I really didn't know what to do with these noodles, so I threw them in some wonton soup. And I'm eating them, and I was like, wow, these are good. They had this really great texture that I liked. And I started doing some more research about this Japanese noodle that they were eating in Japan for centuries. And I realized that the noodle itself had no calories. It had no net carbs. It had no fat, no sugars, no soy, no gluten. It had nothing. But when I started playing around with it and putting it with different sauces, I was like, wow, these are like a clean canvas for cooking. They have no flavor on their own, but they take on the flavors of whatever you cook it with. So I put it on my menu a few weeks later, and the first week we sold 200 dishes. I put it on as like create your own, so they could make their own, what they wanted with, marinara sauce or sea salt and olive oil or ginger, soy, or teriyaki. They could pick their protein, pick their veggies. And the first week we sold 200 dishes. It was all, I thought it would be the gluten-free clientele. And this was even before everyone started talking about gluten-free. But it was all the women and the men that didn't want the calories and the carbs. And then I started doing more market research, and I went to like Lifetime Fitness, and I did a demo there, and there was like 600 people, and there was one person that had ever heard of this noodle from Japan called shirataki, okay? And that is when I realized I was born. I know it's a cliche, and people say, oh, she was born to sing, or he was born to dance. Well, I realized at that moment that I was born to sell the world and bring the world this no oodle. So like Victor Hugo, he's, I'm a huge fan of his. And, one of his quotes, he says, there is nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And I would have to say, well, I obviously agree with that. And, America is, we have issues today. 35% of Americans are obese. And if you're over 60 years old, you have a 40% chance of being obese. So the no oodle, the no calorie, the no net carb, we have people who are allergic to gluten, the whole celiac thing. So of course, the no oodle is a powerful idea, and it's an idea whose time has come. So what I did was I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna transition out of this restaurant business. I'm gonna sell the restaurant. Because you know what? I learned a lot, and now it's time to move on. So what I did was I found a bunch of really smart people. Most of them were my customers, and I engaged them. They became my advisors, some of them, and I raised a bunch of money when the idea was out in space. And I founded the No Oodle Company. And today we're the first to manufacture, distribute, and market this no oodle, okay, the healthy alternative to pasta, and other products like that. So when I'm looking at you, and whoever answered or thought to yourself that you guys were the ones that wanted to be Richie Rich, okay, in your childhood. And then also, if you have an idea through your career that you found or you discovered, and you're just sitting on it, you're not doing anything about it, you're just sitting on it. I want you guys to go home tonight and ask yourself, why are you not taking action for this big, powerful idea that can be as big as the no oodle can be? And I'll just tell you that Thomas Edison and so many other really unbelievable people, they basically said that your failures are your path to your success. And I am proof that it is very scary. But if you don't take a chance and you don't follow your dreams, then you will regret that for the rest of your life. So be inspired and go after your dream. And maybe one day you'll be Richie Rich like me.